Welcome back to Bunk Hits. Here on this channel, we are all about underground, unsigned, independent artists. That means you need to send us your music so that every weekend you can be heard on our live radio broadcast. That's right. We have a stream on twitch.tv/bunkhits every Friday and Saturday where we will be playing your music and all of the music that is sent to us from all around the country, all around the world, to be heard by those who love to find the hidden, obscure gems that they will never find on Spotify or on Apple Music or any of those that push the same algorithmic stuff you always get. This is where you come to find real people making real music in their real lives and connecting with others who like to do the same. So if you make music or you just like to listen to music, you're in the right place. Please hit like and subscribe, ring the notification bell. You can find us on twitch.tv almost every weeknight doing theory dives, readings, different music production techniques, beat making. If you want to send me some stuff and we arrange it, or I help you get some ideas, or you just want some feedback, whatever. I'll help you mix, whatever. You just want to find other people to collaborate with? That's what we do. You just want to send some music and listen to some music? You just want to kind of relax and enjoy the vibes? That's what we do. You're here. You're in the right place. Like, subscribe, notification, follow, all that stuff. I'm on all the socials, Bunk Hits. So, without further ado, let's get into what we're doing today. I'm going to leave this up here just as a little reminder for everybody. So, we are going to kind of analyze a bit of a piece from The Psychic Soviet written by Ian Svenonius, cultural critic, political commentator, musician himself, situationist, punk rocker. I don't know. You decide. We're going to read some of his stuff and figure it out. I've kind of already developed a little bit of a musical response to some of the ideas in this thing. So I'm going to read it and then we're going to listen to the song. And that's kind of what we're doing today. So let's get into it. This is Mordor Dearest by Ian Svenonius in The Psychic Soviet. The 1990s were characterized in film by a feminized machismo. You hear a lot of right-wingers talking about that today. Hollywood's perversion of feminism into girls kick-ass philosophy, whereby women killed and maimed on screen to demonstrate their equality, was the norm. I seem to remember that a little bit. It wasn't quite a bad thing necessarily, but it was kind of a girl power moment. The 90s. I grew up in the 90s. This was a reflection of the neoliberal regime that held power at the time. Ain't that the truth? The 21st century's retooled war economy and its official nostalgia for the greatest generation announced a return to an army buddy genre and its exclusively male lineups. Okay, so that's talking about the kind of 2000s and the Bush, war on terror moment. So we got stuff like Band of Brothers, Black Hawk Down, Saving Private Ryan, We Were Soldiers, Hearts War, all iterated that men must now be men again. I kind of remember that a little bit. I remember thinking, I don't really fit that mold. That ain't for me necessarily. But I was a kid. What do I know? Sorry for the mic noise. So, this maleness extends into all mass media. Madonna, the Spice Girls, and other various divas of the old era are history, condemned as castrating bitches. That's he's intentionally provocative. So let's stick with this. The guys in a gang on a heroic mission consecrated by violence is the story du jour, and there aren't any lines for the ladies. That all this coincides with the new endless war is unremarkable. American film is an obedient propaganda medium. To confuse it with auteurism is naive at best. Just as Star Wars set the stage for the final phase of the Cold War, and MASH and Apocalypse Now rehabilitated foreign intervention for the U.S. Army, Hollywood has recently provided a catalyzing series of films to rally support for the rightist Christian holy war and the regime's fear and hatred of women. You could almost argue that this didn't really end, right? Like, Obama didn't come in and end this stuff, and certainly Trump and Biden haven't necessarily broken with that tradition of the Christian holy war either and hatred of women either. This was written in I guess, the mid-2000s. So, these films are Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. So that's his main example in this, of the women hating and the men need to be men kind of thing. So, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, based on the books by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings fits perfectly into the misogynistic master plan of the Dream Factory, being the boyhood saga par excellence. Indeed, J.R.R. Tolkien belonged to a Christian men's club, served in the Great War, and preempted Robert Bly in many ways. I have no idea who Robert Bly is. Leave something in the comments if you know who Robert Bly is. The Lord of the Rings has long served as escapism for the awkward adolescent or the sexually confused preteen boy to a fantasy world without women and mothers. You know, it's not a threatening place. A particularly homoerotic or sexually ambiguous period of rock and roll is synonymous with the trilogy. You know, Robert Plant sang of Mordor and the Misty Mountains. Mark Bolan's Tyrannosaurus Rex featured a member called Peregrine Took, and Queen's Freddie Mercury synthesized his Zoroastrian faith with Hobbit imagery. So while Zeppelin supposedly fornicated with middle school groupies, T-Rex and Queen both toyed with the anti-woman homoeroticism that serves as the basis of so much adolescent boyhood play. Now listen, you might hear this and think this guy's being homophobic or something. And I don't necessarily think he is. I think he's just recognizing, I think he, you know, there's something about these, he's like a Gen Xer guy, and I'm more of a millennial, and there's a little bit of, there's like this attitude of like, oh, we're all a little gay, you know, that some guys in that generation have. And so I think as a punk rocker, you know, he may not disagree with what I'm saying. He may, but I feel like, you know, he's just kind of recognizing what I kind of recognize. I remember when I was a young lad, you know, I was scared of girls because I wanted to kiss one, and that was horrifying to me. And so, you know, hanging out with the boys was a good way to avoid doing that. A good way to avoid confronting your fear. So what he's talking about here is kind of like, it's kind of normal, you know, it's kind of this like regular thing. And what he's saying is like, even that these bands that use this stuff, like that even explains some of their popularity with this demographic that goes to movies and buys albums and stuff like that. You know, young men and young boys. So I think it's pretty interesting that he's making all of these connections here, because it is true that all those bands used like literal Hobbit imagery in their stuff. Okay, so aside from the trilogy's obvious eugenic overtones and Christo-Masonic symbolism, which if you didn't know, The Lord of the Rings is pretty explicitly racist and like Christian supremacist and stuff like that, if you didn't know. Not that you can't enjoy it, but it's just, you know, Tolkien himself. Just Google it. So aside from the trilogy's obvious eugenic overtones and Christo-Masonic symbolism, its hobbits, dwarves, and goblins, supposedly the benevolent domain of so-called nerds, are a cover for a cunningly constructed super macho ideology. On careful inspection, one recognizes that The Lord of the Rings is the woman hater's Bible. Interesting. It's funny because there was a lot of hate on this woke Lord of the Rings very recently. Maybe that'll be part of the thumbnail. It probably is by now. The Lord of the Rings begins in the Shire. Okay, so this is going to be a little synopsis of the story. And it's really funny. I mean, most people have seen it probably. If you haven't, spoilers. Okay, this is the spoiler alert for Lord of the Rings. The first one, I think. Maybe all three. I think it's all three. So if you haven't seen the entire trilogy, stop here. Go watch. Actually, no. Listen to this, because even once you know the story, it'll be fun to go watch the movie. So listen to me explain the whole story. This will save you reading the books. This will save you watching the entire trilogy. You just get to listen to me read a pretty short synopsis. I mean, these are small pages, and it's only like a few more pages left. And you get to hear Ian Svenonius' interpretation. Okay. So The Lord of the Rings begins in the Shire, the land of hobbits, which resembles nothing more than an idealization of a childlike, carefree world. Okay. Indeed, in Tolkien's milieu, the Shire represents childhood, and the hobbits, or halflings, are children living in a perpetually pre-adolescent and polymorphously perverse sexual state. All right, those are a lot of words, but I think he's just saying that the hobbits are like kids that never grow up, like preteens that like never grow up, never go through puberty. Okay. They are unattended by parents and therefore frolic in magical shoeless grace. Well, imagery there. One day, the famous wizard Gandalf intrudes on the Shire for the hobbit Bilbo's birthday celebration. Bilbo is more worldly than the other Shire denizens, having left the comforts of childhood long ago on an adventure with the wizard Gandalf, in fact. If you haven't seen the old cartoon of The Hobbit, you gotta watch that. It's kind of hilarious. The South Park Lemmy Winks episode is inspired by the music in that. It's hilarious. Okay. Having left the comforts of childhood long ago on an adventure with the wizard, whereby he came to experience the love and companionship of elves, men, and dwarves, and where he discovered a ring of special seductive power. Bilbo found this ring in a hole, where it was guarded jealously by its owner and servant, a creature called Gollum, who cooed incessantly about its beauty. The ring, which grants the wearer invisibility, helped Bilbo escape from Gollum's hole, as well as some other sticky situations. Sticky situations. Put a pin in that. On seeing his old partner after many years, Gandalf notes that Bilbo, too, has been driven mad by the power of the ring, calling it my precious, just as its previous wretched owner had. Uh-oh. So you might be following along here. Hopefully you are. Hopefully it's not boring you to tears, but basically, the ring, Gollum was all, my precious, and then like he took the ring, and now he's kind of starting to do that, and Gandalf's like, dude. Piqued by jealous anger, Gandalf recognizes that the object is in fact the Ring of Power, which has the ability to seduce and destroy all life in Middle-earth. The confederation of fairy provinces which comprise Tolkien's world. Ugh. The wearer of the ring, despite whatever good intentions, shall be irrevocably drawn into the service of the evil one, Sauron, who resides in the dark kingdom of Mordor. Gandalf recounts the saga of the ring, how its master Sauron was nearly defeated at the great battle of the Last Alliance by the combined armies of Middle-earth, but that the weakness of man who believed he could keep the ring for his own use had kept it from being destroyed. They all want the ring. Why? It'll destroy everything. Why do they want it? Gandalf won't even touch the ring, for he knows its power. It's too much, and he'll also be seduced. So what is it? Well, the ring is none other than the dreaded vagina. Poised to destroy boyhood irrevocably and smash asunder the childish predigitations of the Shireland. Sauron is actually woman. Mordor is actually motherhood. The golem is what occurs when a male is entrapped by a girl's charm. He's reduced to a pathetic cooing parody of manhood. The vagina is such that good and noble men who think they can flirt with its power and engage in uncomplicated sexual aerobics are ultimately crushed, enslaved, and locked in servitude to Mordor. That is motherhood and family. Sauron reveals herself as a flaming eye that resembles a dangerous fiery vagina-egg hybrid. When the ring is worn, it renders the wearer invisible, taking them away from the boyhood milieu. Sex leads to such a vanishing act, the individual's destruction, and the end of childhood and friendship. Who doesn't remember being a teenager, hanging with the homies, and then your friend gets a girlfriend? What happens? What happens, chat? They start hanging with the girlfriend more. Bros before hoes turns into what? They forget the code, man. That's what happens. So that's why Bilbo and that's why, Gollum, that's why they turn invisible when they put the ring on. It's the same. It's basically the same thing. I think that's kind of funny. Gandalf recognizes that the only one with a chance of destroying the vagina and not being seduced is the pre-adolescent and thoroughly homosexual Frodo, who is never without his simpering manservant Sam. When I was a kid, everybody made fun of Frodo and Sam for being gay. And you know what? It wasn't right to make fun of them. They just are gay. It's fine. They are joined by another hobbit couple and embark for the land of elves. Despite his relative strength in resisting the pleasure of vaginal intercourse, Frodo too feels very strange when the ring slips, as it sometimes does, onto his finger. It obligingly conforms in size to fit his hobbit hand and provides a frightening peek into the weird, scary world of sex. The hobbits are pursued by ring wraiths, 9 cloaked riders who all wear magical rings of their own, but who seek the great ring of power for their mistress Sauron. They are former man-kings who, like the golem, were seduced and destroyed by carnality. They are now ghastly, ghostly, pussy-whipped specters, seething with resentment at the freedom their womanless hobbit competitors enjoy. Their leader is called the Witch King. As they pursue their prey, they are stopped at a river by an elfin beauty who dangles her virgin purity before them. As jaded, sexually knowing degenerates, they are shamed into adjourning. Meanwhile, Gandalf rides to the wizard Saruman's tower, where he hopes to confer about destroying womankind. Saruman, the leader of Gandalf's order and apparently his old lover, is an extremely powerful ally. Saruman, however, is cantankerous and bitterly gripes about Gandalf's dalliance with Bilbo. Gandalf's sexual licentiousness has actually caused Saruman to seek commiseration with Sauron, whose sway he is now fully under. On learning of Saruman's treachery, Gandalf and Saruman engage in a heated phallic battle with their staves, and Gandalf is finally imprisoned on the top of Saruman's tower. The gog-eyed Saruman asks his new lover Sauron for instructions, whereupon she tells him to make me an army. This is really an instruction to give her children. And soon Saruman is concocting orcs, or the couple's babies, out of gooey placenta from a hole he has dug in the ground. Meanwhile, the elves, who represent a sexless children's idealization of adolescence, have rescued the hobbits from their mishaps and are bitterly condemning mankind / adults for their weakness, aka their libido. So, Tolkien is clearly hung up about sex. Doesn't like it. In their Art Deco castle, they house a relic from the Battle of the Last Alliance. The sword Elendil, broken in pieces and representing the castration and powerlessness fated for Middle-earth if the woman threat is not destroyed. This sword phallus broke when it hit the ring / vagina. Yet it sliced off the finger that wore it. Though the penis of the father is easily lopped off, the mother and her vagina are more formidable. So this is clearly like Tolkien has mom issues, like real bad. Real bad. The fellowship that goes to protect Frodo on his dangerous journey to wreck the ring includes the hobbits, an elf-dwarf couple, and an argumentative pair of male knights, Aragorn and Boromir. While the one knight is so chaste as to have taken a eunuch elf as a wife, the other, Boromir, is constantly tempted and tormented by the power of the ring. He finally succumbs to its temptation, whereupon the orcs, Sauron's babies, destroy him. His momentary weakness leads him to fatherhood and banishment from the latently homosexual Tolkien boy world. Again, he's not saying it's bad that it's gay. He's just saying that Tolkien himself might think it's bad that it's gay, but he wrote something really gay. So take that how you will. It's fine to be gay, but I feel like he's more coming at it from like hating women angle, and maybe like that's not, hating women is bad. Being gay is not bad. So that's what he's talking about, is like Tolkien just constructs this world in that way. It's all around hating women. So when the fallen knight apologizes for betraying the gang or the fellowship, the other knight lies on him and kisses him gently. The destruction of babies is the duty of the child, for the newborn signals the impending end of his own childhood. I was the oldest, so, it kind of freaked me out when I had younger siblings born. It made me feel like, oh my God, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm going to be old. Okay, and so I will not let the White City fall, Aragorn promises tantrically. This promise of erectile endurance is important, for it mixes a pledge of vengeful support with a stern chastisement. With a little more discipline, impregnation could have been averted. So all who come into contact with the ring are tempted by its charm. Even the elvish princess Galadriel briefly imagines herself sexualized through its appropriation. This fantasy of vagina ownership, though momentary, transforms her from lovely coquette to horrible tyrant mother. Wow, Tolkien. Throughout the story, holes are equated with evil, and all manner of evil resides in them. The ring is a hole, the orcs come out of holes, Gollum lives in a hole, and Gandalf is finally killed when an ancient evil is summoned up from another hole. The ring can only be destroyed by being cast into another fiery hole atop Mount Doom. Tolkien is proposing here that creation try again after its folly in forging womankind. I mean, where did he get that idea from? It's almost like the Bible might give you that idea in the first freaking chapter. It is important to note that the ring or vagina of Sauron is actually disembodied from her. She is not whole. It is the union of the two that is the great fear. While the sexless Sauron in Mordor has been kept militarily contained by men and elves, the ring has likewise kicked around for ages, fornicated by randy scamps like Gollum and Bilbo. The mother and the ring, though certainly despised, are known quantities and under control. But if the mother is reacquainted with her sexuality, the ring, the vagina, then it is apocalypse for Middle-earth and the triumph of evil. The mother threat can be tolerated if and only if it is divorced from sexuality. Bilbo's sexual liaison with the passive lost ring, or Frodo's temptation to screw it and fit of bisexual hedonism, well, they were weak and embarrassing, but ultimately they were okay. It is feminine power and sexuality combined, which are the great insurmountable Satan to Tolkien. And particularly, it is the transference of the boy's feelings for his brotherhood onto his female lover, the surrender of Sauron upon the taste of the ring, the surrender to Sauron upon the taste of the ring, resulting in union and marriage, Mordor, which is the destroyer of childhood, Middle-earth, and particularly the Shire. Thus are the strongly homosexual subtext of The Lord of the Rings. And now he's got a bit of a conclusion, and then we're going to kind of go over some of what I think, and then kind of the music I made in response to this. The film industry has always colluded with federal aims. Okay, we're taking a wild turn, but we're kind of going back to the beginning where he was talking about, right? He was talking about in the 90s, it was girl power, girl kick ass. And then in the 2000s, it was like, wait, girl, we hate girl, men kick ass, men go to war. Like that was like the Bush era. We're talking W here. War on terror stuff. So we're back to the film industry because we just described these films. Spoiler alert over. The film industry has always colluded with federal aims. Okay. Through its monopolization of the means of production, Hollywood has invariably utilized what Lenin called the most important of the arts as a commercial propaganda tool that not only corroborates the imperialist power structure, but also complies with federal aims in maintaining myths and promoting policy. Doesn't even seem conspiratorial, really, at this point. The American film industry's obedience with the government in disseminating propaganda for both world wars was particularly striking when the entire might of the studio system was brought to bear on educating audiences as to their proper perspective. I mean, back in the day, it was like going to the movies was like watching TV. Not everybody had a TV, so you went to the movies. So during the arms race, films like Red Dawn and Stripes maintained the official myth of the Soviet threat, while The Deer Hunter, Platoon, stuff like that, successfully rehabilitated anti-war sentiment regarding Vietnam. Hollywood's old reactionary history of red baiting and blacklisting is much publicized, but even in these apolitical passive times, which we're not in anymore, the role of Hollywood in, well, I guess Hollywood might think that they are politically passive, apolitical, even as they try to make liberalism the background, the normal, to them it is apolitical just to be liberal. So even in the apolitical passive role of Hollywood, it still works to wipe out dissent and propagate ideology relentlessly. Sorry. So Hollywood's promotion of various industries through product placement barely even warrants mention due to its ubiquity, but the extent to which the subtext of modern films attempts to affect the ideological system of the viewer is truly remarkable. And The Lord of the Rings is the direct result of the Ashcroft Bush born-again, woman-hating White House and contains a convenient race war allegory to boot. Though this born-again agenda seems at odds with the homosexuality latent in the Fellowship, it is the enforced repression of their brother love that makes them fight, expressing itself in their violence towards orc babies and the various manifestations of women. This paradox of repressed homosexual brother love and fratricide is at the root of all military action. I thought that is wild. Because have you ever tried to square that circle of how, like, the most macho dudes act so kind of gay towards each other, and they're the ones, like, in the military doing all this, like, fighting stuff? It's the repression of their homosexuality which gives them, like, all this will to fight. Insane. So yeah, Tolkien hates women. He wants to destroy the vagina. And that's why I made this little tune called Tolkien is Wrong. P-word good, actually. And I'm going to switch screens for a second here and show you just the arrangement a little bit. But I'm going to play it off of like a media player so we don't have to use all my bandwidth. But yeah, we're going to listen to this now. So yeah, Tolkien was wrong. P-word good, actually. So I'm going to explain. It kind of like, the song kind of fits the chronological order of the story. You begin in the Shire. You have to go. You're dallying with the ring. Everything seems dark and hopeless. You're at that moment where you're Frodo. Do you destroy the ring? And maybe instead of destroying the ring, you just don't. And you just have sex instead, and it's okay. It's fine. It's not a bad thing. And so that's kind of like the second half of the song is almost like it's almost very masturbatory in its length, but it also, to me, feels like a rock and roll kind of wig out, barn burner at the end of the song kind of thing. And I feel like, I don't know why, but Tolkien was like a guy who lived kind of back in the day, and I'm just, for whatever reason, kind of old barn burner rock and roll style sex party end of the song made sense for this P-word is good, actually thing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play that. You know what? Actually, it is quiet. So I'm going to go ahead and play it off of Ableton. Because I can and I want to. And it's, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I mean that. Let's see, that right there. That was me. You know, that was me like I was just kind of messing around with the flute sounds after reading that and after watching the Hobbit cartoon. It was like, oh man, these flutes remind me of the Hobbit cartoon thing. You know, so that was the whole impetus. So anyway, that's kind of the idea on the stream, is that we get into some theory stuff or some kind of something interesting, something some artist said, some type of, you know, just some jumping off point to get our brains going, get the juices flowing. And then this is a finished product, but like, you know, if I didn't have something to already work on, we would jump off from that and then like, okay, let's start messing with some sounds, or let's lay down a track, or let's come up with a beat, or like, you know, or you send me something you're working on. And that's kind of the idea of how these are going to go. So there you go. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, this is the stuff that you like. This is what you're into. Like if you came all the way to this part of the video, you know what to do now. This is the part where you like it and subscribe, because it's like I'm such a small channel right now. And you know, that really helps to just click the like, even if you don't want to be bugged by subscriptions. But I don't, you know, I'm going to be posting, but I don't post all the time. I'm not going to bug you. It's going to be stuff like this where, you know, you can put it on, you get read to, you get some new ideas, and maybe you want to make some music. Maybe I'll inspire you to make some music later on today, tonight, later this morning, this evening, whatever time it is for you. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to Bunk Hits. Send us your track. There's a link in the description for the Google Doc for the radio show on the weekends on the Twitch channel. Check out the radio show on the Twitch channel. We got stuff from all around the country we're playing already. I'm aiming to get stuff all around the world. Please send us your music. And we'll see you on the stream or in the next video. Thank you so much. Peace out.